Hi, everyone. So excited to see you. Welcome all the women on Zoom. Thank you for tuning in. Um, I wanted to tell you my actual birthday is actually July 12th. Okay, but today there's someone with us whose actual birthday is today, and that is Chang Wang. And he is the dad of my daughter-in-law, Daphne Carman, and I have a special gift for you. Thank you for spending your birthday with us. I'm excited today for July's monthly circle and for the gift of your presence. In our audience, we also have our movie producers who are developing the movie titled A Daughter's Voice. That's the movie of my life. So I want to introduce you to Trey and Ariel Fernald. Lorianne Beelan. Yes. And the person directing the movie will be Lisa Arnold. Yeah. My sister Rosita is shuttling cars, so she's not here. Yeah, but she's also the one who designed the floral arrangements in the front of the doors. Okay, that's what she did. And my brother Bobby, his wife Kathy, and my niece Rachel are here. They flew into Houston. Could you stand, please? I'm excited that they will be sharing a message with you. My brother Bobby will share, and then Rachel will share. I thought it would be interesting for you to hear a message about Anita at the age of 17. Because many of you know me as I am today, but when I remember my days when I was 17, I thought I was a total wreck. And yet, I don't know what they're going to say. They might say, oh yeah, she was a total wreck. But I think too, they're very special to me, and it just makes me cry when I think about them. When my mother took her own life, my brother was in America, and he had married Kathy, who's the most wonderful wife and mom. And I remember talking to him on the phone, and he said, "Do you want me to come?" And you know, it's very hard to go back to your country when money is tight. And yet I said, yes, I want you to come, because I felt like the ground under me was just collapsing. And I remember when my brother landed in Hong Kong and I just saw him, I just felt like I had an anchor in my life and that things were gonna be okay. And he said, focus on the future. I'm working on getting you to America, and you're going to have a different future in America. And I know that without my brother Bobby and Kathy, who supported him, I wouldn't be here today. And Rachel at the time was 5 years old. She was my first best friend in America. So, and I know that when I met Bob, I could feel the sigh of relief in my brother, because it was like, of all the men I was going out with, they were disasters, that he felt like, wow, at last she found someone solid. And then when my two sons were born, they are just like their dad. And it's like what the Bible says, right? A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. The Carman men have just been the pillars in my life, and without them, Inspired Women wouldn't be here. And then they married the most amazing daughters-in-law, you know, Daphne Carman. Daphne's actually an immigration lawyer who's now like an amazing mom. And then we've got Kristen, and she just had her baby, and the baby's gonna turn 1 this month. And so I just am so grateful for my family, and just God showing that you can never outgive God. So I welcome today my brother Bobby, and after him, my niece Rachel.
So it's a very joyful day for me. I have an opportunity to talk to all of you. People often ask me about Anita, you know, how did she become a leader that she is today? And I could never really give a very quick answer, but in this audience, I'll be able to do it. It all started with the family and the shared journey I had with Anita. So it all started in 1941, okay, way back. And that was the darkest time of the World War II. And my father, a German Jew, escaped to Shanghai, thinking things will be fine, things will be safe. That was not the case. Right? When the Japanese came around, he was put in the Shanghai ghetto. It's a soft ghetto, a soft concentration camp, if you will. Conditions were very, very bad. No medicine, not enough food. He never made it. He never came out, and that leaves my mother, okay, having a child and a big family to support. It was very, very difficult time. Starvation is something that we always thought about, and we worried about every meal then. So, 1949 came around. The Mao's Chinese Liberation Army occupied China. Things got much worse. There were no jobs. The jobs were disappearing. And starvation became even a bigger problem. So there was my mother. And she's got some tough choice to make. She could stay in Shanghai, watch the family sink into abject poverty, or go to Hong Kong, perhaps make a living, and save the family, if you will. She's the one who never complained. She was determined to do things, always asked the question, what should I do to support a family of 9? There are other people in the family. So there was no good choice then. The choice was between staying put or leave Hong Kong, leave me. She made a tough decision. She left me in Shanghai. She kissed me goodbye. She told me she would come back for me one day. And that's my early childhood. I didn't understand what was going on. I was wondering why my mother would leave me. That was very, very tough for a 7-year-old boy. Okay. And there she goes. She kissed me goodbye. She had to save the family. So I was in Shanghai. Things didn't get any better. What I could do was living in a place where the environment is relatively toxic. There's not enough to eat. In those days, you want to buy anything at all, you need a coupon. You need a coupon in order to buy rice, oil, or the life essential things. But even when you have a coupon, there is no assurance you're going to get it. So I will remember I stayed in a long line, worried about getting to the front of the line when food is no longer available. All right. So that was my early childhood. Okay. And so to this day, my kids call me, I'm the coupon king. I have affinity to coupons. I love coupons because the coupons saved my life. So, what I had to do there, because I live in a family with my uncles, and one of my uncles abused me, and things got really tough. And I said, I told myself, I have no choice. I have to leave this toxic environment. At the age of 11, I decided I'm going to look for a boarding school. I read the papers without any help from anyone. I got on a long distance bus to a boarding school in the outside village, outside Shanghai. And I took a test, I passed the test. Then I started my middle school and high school in a boarding school. All right. Boarding school was great. I was guaranteed 2 meals a day. Imagine that. So that was good. One thing I remember I want to share with you is the boarding school experience in the dining hall. The dining hall is the great big hall with a dirt floor that could accommodate about 500 people. And so there are lots of tables and 6 people stand around each one of the table. There's no sitting, and you know why no sitting was required later. So what happens is that they blow a whistle, we all dive into the dishes in the middle of the table within 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. The sound was deafening, chopsticks diving into the dishes. And within 5 minutes, all the food are gone. All the dishes, or the bowls were empty. That was great. 2 meals a day that I had in a boarding school. So the next thing I want to do was thinking about the history. I was going to from there, I applied for exit permit. In this country, you want to leave the country, everybody's free to go. In China, you couldn't go at the time. You have to get a permission from the government in order to leave to visit your parents, in my case. So the next thing I want to do was, now I'm in Hong Kong and finished the school, and I was thinking about the future. I said, I want to go to America. Okay, that is the place I want to be. And not knowing what the right thing to do at the time, there was no internet. You cannot Google the schools and all that. I went to the United States Information Library in Hong Kong, and got a lot of catalogs. And just by myself, I decided I'm going to apply to 50 schools. And the application was written on an aerogram, which is the backside of envelopes for some of the people who are old enough to know that what the aerogram was, to save money. And so I sent 50 letters to schools, and among them is Rice University, MIT, and so forth. And what I had was what they call chutzpah, which is outrageous, audacious. So So to my amazement, oh, by the way, I asked for full scholarship. I asked for room and board. Not shy at all, just like Anita is. All right. So, okay, so to my amazement, there were two acceptances. He said, okay, one was from North Dakota, and the other one is from Arkansas A&M, all right? And well, okay, I got to hurry up a little bit. Given that at the time, I didn't know any better, so I checked the map and say, oh, well, North Dakota is a little bit too cold. I'm from Hong Kong. I want someplace warm. I picked Arkansas A&M. That perhaps was not the best choice, okay? Later on found out. So there I learned a lot. I learned the fact that besides school, I learned where to sit on a bus. This was 1960. What water cooler to use, which restroom to go to, right? In addition, I also had an opportunity to be exposed to Christianity. On weekends, I go with my schoolmates, and I go to church with them on weekends, and typically it's a Baptist church, right? So that's what happened. And so after 1 year, I decided I'm not learning very much. I got to go to a better school. I transferred to the City College of New York in New York City. All right. There, I kept my promise to my mother that I would support myself once I get to the States. And my first job was a dishwasher. Okay. I earned $1 an hour, and 12 hours a day, I earned $12. I get 2 breaks every day working the restaurant, and I taught myself how to be a waiter. And pretty soon, the restaurants would support me to go through college. Okay, the whole time I finished the school, and I joined the business world. My first job was with IBM. My next job was Fidelity Investments. Okay, the thing I've learned there would affect me for the rest of my life. God was doing something extraordinary, and when Anita told me that she wanted to come to the States, it was an opportunity for me to do something. My contribution was, I thought at the time, was very small. All I have to do is sign an affidavit that I would support her if necessary. And look what happened. I didn't know the consequences of just a simple signature on a governmental form. Okay, Anita, since then, she finished the school, she came to the United States, and I'm so thankful God gave Anita the drive to complete 4-year college in 2 years. Management consulting job, she trained herself, and she learned how to collaborate, how to teach, how to organize. All of this made possible for her to be the leader of women, inspired women of today. So there's just one person I would like to mention, a widow. She made a sacrifice to educate one son, and the one son was able to help one sister, and the sister's gone to encourage, mentor, educate, instead of so many women, thousands of women through inspired women. So that's got to be God's work. I didn't realize what I did would have such a high, significant consequence, Anita. So you have honor your honor your mother's sacrifice, and more importantly, continue to honor the Lord's with your service. And for everyone here today, thank you for believing and supporting the mission. May God bless you all, and may God bless Anita.
I have to say that my grandmother's trick with him, he used on me. When we moved from New York to California, I was absolutely not happy about that move and gave him a lot of trouble. And he said, I was in 9th grade, okay, 9th grade, and he said, give me 1 year. If you stay in California for 1 year and you don't like it, I promise I'll send you back. I saw the light. California is a pretty cool place to go to high school and college. So anyway, all right, let me employ these. So I just want to start off by saying I am the mother of 2 young men, ages 21 and 19, and I am in the unenviable phase of life where they have started unpacking their own upbringing. So that's been fun. And I can't really blame them because I opened the door. You see, last year I went on a journey with the women of my own church in which we wove many of their own stories into content that I presented at 3 different women's events. And those stories had such a profound impact on me that I started sharing those stories around the dinner table with my family. And in that storytelling, I opened the door for my kids to tell their own stories. And boy, did they. Those conversations were sometimes hard, and they required me to be brave, and they required me to be humble. But they were also very healing. Sometimes the conversations were even very funny. See, I ruminated over each conversation and started making connections. Every connection led to an epiphany, and each epiphany provided context for my behavior, which I shared with my kids. But I never used my context as an excuse. Instead, I used it to facilitate and deepen their understanding. My willingness to own my own mistakes and apologize for them made my boys more willing to hear my context. And understanding context has given them deeper connections to our family. And that's important because just like Ezra, Ellie, Lucas, and Kaya Carman, my boys are only 2 generations removed from their immigrant roots. That immigration, as I suspect is often the case, is wrapped up in trauma. Trauma. Trauma is a word that gets thrown around a lot these days, especially by my kids' generation, I think. But I'm going to posit this morning that if ever a family could be a poster child for trauma, it's ours. And it's so easy to overlook because my dad and Anita and Rosita took hold of the American dream, came here, got their degrees, worked their jobs, married their American spouses, and raised American children. They realized the American dream. So what's the problem? As one of my sons recently wrote in an essay, each marriage has faded our family's origin story. With each new generation, the family takes one giant leap forward into assimilating into this beautiful country, but each time, pieces of our family history get lost. It was interesting to read that perspective from him, the son who is the only one of my father's 4 grandchildren to share his olive complexion, brown eyes, and dark hair. With that fading and separation, it's easy to think that we are also 2 generations separated from our family's immigration trauma, or that trauma's effects are diluted simply by time and space. I don't think trauma ever gets diluted. It simply gets buried. But trauma is a cancer. If it's not dealt with, it festers. And when it festers, it harms. And that's why Anita's ministry and story are so powerful. Because rather than allow trauma with a capital T to fester like cancer with a capital C, she has allowed God to turn her life story into a different capital T. Hers is a story of transformation. I was only 4 or 5 when I met. There was a lot of debate last night over the ages we all were when we met. So I'm going to say 4 or 5. I need to hedge my bets here. The earliest stories I know of her come from hearing her talk to my mom. I know that when she arrived here as a 17-year-old, she didn't know how to make a bed. I'm not actually sure that's changed. I know how my son read this last night. He was like, "Mom, I don't think you should say that." I know how shocked she was when my mother gave her a tuna sandwich with fish packed in a can, made with fish packed in a can, and how odd she thought peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to be as she pined for a savory heap of noodles. When Anita and Rosita headed for college, Anita regularly came home to our house for the summer. I couldn't believe how willing she was to spend time with me. Looking back, she didn't know anybody else in our little town of Fishkill, New York. Who else was she going to spend time with? But that meant the world to me. She often reminisces about the times we would walk to our local Friendly's ice cream shop in town. She finishes up that memory by saying, "Boy, that was dumb." And she's not wrong. We walked on the side of a dangerous road with almost no shoulder, with cars whizzing past us. It was dumb. But those walks ended with me getting mint chocolate chip ice cream, so to me, I didn't care, and it never occurred to me that when I was with Anita, I might be in danger. One of my fondest memories of Anita is her sitting with me in our backyard at night, under the stars while she strummed her guitar. I thought she was a rock star, and I loved that a rock star would take the time to hang out with me. Looking back, it's funny to think that during those summers as a college student, Anita was willing to share a room with a kid, and on a double bed all summer. One morning, she woke up complaining, "Do you know that you kick me every single night?" I didn't believe her. I was like, "Why would I kick you? I don't kick." She insisted that we switch sides that night. And so that night, when I kicked, and without Anita to stop my momentum, I kicked myself right off the bed and onto the floor. And I thought, I do kick every night. Good to know. What I didn't know during those years I spent kicking and idolizing my aunt was how untethered she had so harshly become from the life she had once known, how unmoored she was as she navigated her new life, feeling so alone, and how deeply she was grieving the loss of her mother. Tuna out of a can and peanut butter sandwiches are trite stand-ins for the kind of culture shock, blown apart life, and deep loss experienced by Anita, Rosita, and my dad. What seemed an idyllic life to this American girl was deeply rooted in trauma. As a child, riding my bike all over the neighborhood and doing cartwheels on the front yard and climbing our giant chestnut tree, I had no idea. The fading and separation from our shared history had already begun. But now, looking back at the trajectory of my own life, I realized the trauma was always there. As we both grew older, I did notice one thing: Anita's drive. It was kind of hard to miss. I recognized it because I'd seen it in my father. Their work ethic is insane, like insane. And Rosita is similar. Rosita can sell anything to anyone. She used to sell jewelry to the women on the professional women's tennis tour and networked her way into the US Open locker room. She can network like no one I've ever known. There's a bravery to her that floors me, and that same bravery is present in Anita and my dad. I once asked my dad what drove him so hard and what gave him the ability to bounce back up every time he'd been knocked down. As I'd come to understand the enormity and complexity of his history, his answer made perfect sense. Having left everything behind and having arrived on these shores with nothing, he responded, "Failure wasn't an option." One generation later, because of his bravery and drive, I didn't live with that kind of pressure. I can't imagine what it feels like to be brave when bravery is your only option, because there is no safe place to land if you fail. I wonder how many women you serve here at Inspire live under that kind of pressure. I didn't really have a front row seat to the incubation of Anita's relationship with Jesus. I knew of her personal journey from the corporate world into motherhood, and did get to watch that unfold when I spent 2 summers living with the Carman family while I was in college. I had my own room, and I slept on a queen-size bed, proof that our family was going places. I know that she applied her management consulting skills to parenting as she kept real-time data on Robbie. I don't think it's an accident that he ended up studying operations research and applied math in college. I watched Anita handle Thomas when he refused to eat what was put in front of him at the dinner table. Thomas, those memories gave me great comfort and hope as I sat across the dinner table from my own second son years later. I often thought, Thomas turned out great, Leighton will too. And you did turn out great, and Leighton did too. By then, Anita was firmly planted at First Baptist Houston and was pursuing her degree at Dallas Theological Seminary. Years later, when I was living and working in Dallas, I visited Houston, sat under her teaching for the first time, and thought, wow, she's good. Then she launched Inspire, a whole miraculous story in itself that I'm sure you're all familiar with. That's where God made it clear that he sees all and wastes nothing. It's where he put on a master class on what it looks like for him to take the capital T of trauma and exchange it for the capital T of transformation. When he transforms, it's never for nothing. Anita will always tell you it's always for a purpose. I've watched God transform Anita's bravery. No longer rooted in fear of failure, God has transformed it into a deep reliance on him. She believes that if God calls her to do something, he's going to make it happen. So what does she have to worry about? Meanwhile, I'm over here thinking, oh, I don't know, like lots of things. I was first stunned at the depth of her faith when she planned her first Inspire luncheon and booked a banquet hall with a 500-seat capacity. I distinctly remember her saying, I just thought, okay, God, you're going to have to fill it. And I thought, she's nuts. When she told me that she found out who the Christian CEOs were in Houston, networked to make appointments to see them, and then asked them to support and sponsor the leaders she was developing on her staff, I knew she was nuts. But Anita was not nuts. She was courageous, firmly believing that God would be with her as he led her everywhere he intended for her to go. I watched God transform Anita's resources. What happens when you take someone with an MBA and experience at both a Fortune 50 company and one of the top management consulting firms, and then marries that with a seminary degree? Well, you get Inspire women. God redirected Anita, who once worked until 11 o'clock each night to climb the corporate ladder, to use the talents and skills he gave her to tirelessly work towards a world where every woman, regardless of race or economic level, can serve in her purpose with the gifts God has entrusted her. God has transformed Anita's life. By giving her the platform to tell her story, he has taken her trauma out from the hidden shadows of her life and exposed them to his light. In doing that, he has given her grief, her untethering, and unmooring a purpose. In giving her trauma purpose, God has deepened the context of her story and his hand in her life and expanded her story's reach. Yes, her life's context will always inform her weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and mistakes. But even more powerfully, her life's context drives her to bring other women with her on their own journeys of healing and transformation. To help her do that, God gave Anita Bob, who has cheered her on every step of the way and stood as a grounded and stable support for her and the boys. Finally, God transforms others through her work. Who better than a woman who knows deep loss to walk alongside other women who also have experienced deep loss? Who else but a woman who knows vulnerability can so compassionately come alongside other women who are so vulnerable? And who else but a battle-scarred warrior is better suited to carry women on her back while they grow in their own faith and gather their own strength in the Lord? Anita Carman is one of a kind. If there's anyone else out there like her, I haven't met her. Anita is always speaking of spiritual mothers and daughters. The idea of generational relationships is embedded in her thinking. I love that. Our physical and spiritual families flourish when we bring our stories out of the shadows and into God's light, when we allow him to transform us as we heal and grow, and when we walk authentically alongside each other as we do. You all do that so well here at Inspire. I've learned in sharing stories with the women at my home church and in subjecting myself to the stories of my children that it is so important to listen to people's stories when they are brave enough to tell them. When we listen, it's important to believe them, even when there's a greater context to share, even when we don't fully understand. Because as the Inspire website says so well, when one is diminished, we are all diminished. God never diminishes us. He grows us so that our lives and stories expand. He heals us so that our stories can draw others into the same kind of healing and expansive relationships we have with him. He has done that through Anita, and his work continues through all of you, whether you're on staff or a donor or a scholarship recipient who takes your own transformation out into the world. I leave you with these verses from Isaiah 61, a description of Jesus and a challenge to anyone transformed for a purpose through the power of his Spirit. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance for our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. Transformation for a purpose, to bring hope and healing to the world, all for the glory of God. Every life you bless through this ministry is precious. Everything you do here matters. Thank you for letting me share.